So we just came back from a 30-day trip across America. Are you wondering how much money it costs for gas to do a trip just like that? Well, we're about to tell you, and I have to say, it's a little bit more than I was anticipating. Hey everybody, we're Kim and Daniel from CouchPotatoCamping.com, and we just returned from a 30-day trip heading out west. And we travel from North Carolina, so we headed out west along the I-40 route and went to Utah, Arizona, all of the great places along that route. So 30 days. How much does it cost to RV for a month? Well, we're about to tell you. We won't keep you in suspense, but we do want to say there are a lot of factors affecting this cost, so you'll want to hear what those are.
And this is fuel cost.
This is fuel cost only, yes. We'll do other videos that are our campground costs, as well as some other comparisons of how much it costs to RV. So our 30-day fuel costs were $1,570.65. And I have to personally say that's about double what I anticipated they would be. I don't know, I didn't do any calculations beforehand to really estimate it, but I just assumed it would be like $700-800. So when we actually added up all the figures, that was a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, and I think it's because fuel costs are a lot more this time than it was 4 years ago when we RV'd.
The cost of per gallon?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even though we were towing a shorter rig, a lighter rig, there's that factor that's in there too. So there's other factors that we'll get into as well that affect towing, obviously.
Yeah, and this is in May, so it was before Memorial Day weekend, like when fuel costs generally increase. But yeah, so I guess one of the big factors was the wind.
Right.
Wind out west is no joke.
Right, yeah, and just so you know, we're towing with a 2014 F-150 with the FX4 package. It has the towing package. It has the 3.6 liter EcoBoost engine. So just to give you a base reference, depending on what you tow with, obviously it's going to be different. Our trailer maxed out is about 3,900 pounds, maybe 4,000 pounds. And the weight of our truck was fairly light considering our ability to economically weigh it down with gear and everything. So,
and we have a 2021 Intex Soul Horizon, which is 19 feet.
Right.
So again, we have a shorter trailer, and yeah. And so the winds out west, there was one time when Daniel was driving, we were right into a headwind, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's, we ranged in gallons per mile, obviously depending on wind, depending on terrain, depending on what point in the trip we were, because obviously if you're starting out on the trip, you're going to be heavier with all your gear, with all your food. And as we used up more food, because we brought quite a bit of food, I could tell that our weight was going down towards the end of the trip. So obviously that affects. And then towards the end of the trip as well, we were, more in lowlands, flat areas. So obviously there's so many factors involved, but in general, the headwinds and the crosswinds were the biggest factor. Obviously going up large hills as well. So
yeah, at one point you said that we were getting 4 miles to the gallon as we were going into a headwind.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And that was Arizona. I think that was Arizona.
Yeah, I think it was.
It was flat, but we were heading. No, actually, it was in Texas.
Oh yeah.
It was in Texas. It was flat. It was the panhandle of Texas. It was east of Amarillo. But we were heading right into winds, into a storm that basically was going through the panhandle and western Oklahoma. And, we were getting 4 miles a gallon. Now, a day prior to that, for example, in Arizona, flat grounds, minimal use of the air conditioner as well, we were getting 16 miles to the gallon because we had a tailwind. And we were lighter, and this was towards the end of the trip. So it's,
it does vary a lot. And it's like, but if you were on an itinerary, you can't really wait until like a windstorm would go by or be like, oh, the winds are strong, I don't want to lose another 5 miles per gallon. So I mean, I guess some people that are traveling really slow could do that, but
yeah.
not if you have an itinerary.
Yeah, we had a pretty strict itinerary. I mean, we knew every day where we were going to be, how long, how many miles it was going to take in general every day. So we were pretty.
And I doubt that most people are going to wait until they have low winds to travel, but.
Right.
So that brings up an interesting point because on our very last night, we met somebody that wanted to check out our Soul Horizon, and they started talking with us, and he basically said that it doesn't matter what kind of trailer that you tow as far as miles per gallon on average.
Right.
And that generally it's what, around 10?
About 10, yeah. So he had a travel trailer of some sort. He had a motorhome, I believe it was a Class C or a small Class A. And he has both. He's used both. And he says, regardless, it's about average, about 10 miles per gallon, which is about our average.
Ours was 10.3 miles per gallon on average.
And that was across almost 5,400 miles of towing.
Yeah, so I guess those are some other specifics that we should talk about. We used 516.4 gallons of gas, and it was 5,357 and a half mile along our month-long route. So yeah, for again, the grand total of $1,570. Now, we went in late April, but most of May. The temperature was, just thank God, very temperate. We didn't use the air conditioning, I would say, for probably 3/4 of our trip. So had we been using air conditioning, the fuel cost would have been even higher.
Yeah, so I noticed in my truck at least, and this is years of towing with it, the minute you turn on the air conditioner, you immediately lose at least 3 miles per gallon right off the top. So in perfect conditions, if you're averaging 10 miles per gallon, in perfect conditions where it's flat, there's no crosswind, etc., you immediately drop down to from 10 average to about 7 or 8 average. And then if you factor in headwinds or crosswinds or terrain that has grade to it, you keep deducting off that. And that's of course that's just our setup, that's our rig, but I would say in general that's probably pretty average across.
And that's again, it's always going to be affected by something. If you're only RVing on flatlands in the Midwest, it's not going to be nearly the same as if you're going up terrain out west. So yeah, there's so many factors, but this is just our cost comparison. And also, we didn't do a lot of boondocking, so we didn't have to bring a fresh tank that was filled. And so if we were doing boondocking in between places and to get to those destinations and we had to have that fresh tank filled, that would have been a lot more weight, and that would have impacted the miles per gallon as well.
And on this trip, I think we only filled our freshwater tank about half, which is about 20 gallons, 2 to 3 times, I believe.
I think so, only 2 or 3 times.
And that was just just in case. There was a couple nights that we were boondocking, harvest hose, etc. But so we didn't even have a full tank of water, which water is about 8.4 pounds per gallon. So if you do the math, you're adding that on top of whatever your dry weight and your weight of your rig is. And the other thing is typically how we RV is I try to dump our black and gray tanks as much as possible before we hit the road. Certain instances, obviously, if you're boondocking, we didn't, but I try to keep our weight down as much as possible without getting too anemic.
So that was our cost. Surprising to me. I don't know. Surprising to you? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, and just in terms of the cost per gallon of gas, obviously we saw a range depending on where we were. But in general, the spread was probably 30 to 40 cents across a regular gallon of regular gas, because our truck uses regular gas.
And I do have to put it into context, although I don't think it affected us, but we were traveling when there was the gas shortage in the southeast, and suddenly gas was I don't know, the prices out east were going crazy. I don't think it affected the prices out west,
I don't think
but
so.
just to put it into context, that's when we were
Yeah.
traveling. So if that had happened and we were out east, then
Right.
wow.
Yeah. And we never had any issues getting gas either, in terms of at a gas station. So, once we had a gas station, they had gas. We never had an issue where we rolled up to a gas station and it didn't have gas.
Do have to say though, in Utah, they cap it
They
at
do.
$75.
Yeah.
Right?
They do, yeah. So there was lots of times where I try to keep gas in the tank and not run it down to empty.
Yeah.
Usually I'm filling up about 3/4 of the tank. I usually try to get us with a 1/4 of a tank buffer as much as I can. But yeah, they cut it off at $75. So regardless of how many gallons you have, and that's going to fluctuate obviously
Yeah.
with your per gallon costs. So
If you had a large rig, that doesn't really go
yeah,
that far.
yeah, you'd have to do it twice. You'd have to do.
Can you sit there and you can pump twice,
You'd have to, yeah.
separate transactions?
The kicker with that is depending on what credit card you're using. If you're using a credit card, some credit cards might flag that as an odd
Right.
cost. So just be mindful of that.
I didn't
as
think
well.
about that.
Yeah. So if you're using cash,
Okay.
not an issue. But yeah, in Utah we saw that a lot where they capped
Yeah.
it at $75 regardless of how much it was. It was never really an issue with us. I think there was one time where we had 7/8 of a tank instead of a full tank, but it didn't matter. So.
Cool. All right, so those are our costs. If you want to give us an estimate of what your miles per gallon are, if you've ever figured that out, go ahead and put that in the comments below. I think everybody would be interested to know the miles per gallon that you can get while towing, not like in your vehicle normally, but while towing. And if you're going to share, put in what sort of rig that you have, trailer, motorized, or whatever. I just think it'd be interesting to see what other people are getting.
What's the average?
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. So be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we would love that. And hit the like button if you like hearing about the actual costs of what it is to RV. And we'll be sharing a lot more details from our trip, and we've got a lot of campground reviews already, videos up, and I think you'd be interested in seeing where we stayed, because we stayed in some pretty cool places. All right, take care everybody.
Bye.